Before the war in Vietnam started, what type of person were you when it came to your attitude towards society, the government, and just how America currently was in that time period?
Well, before the Vietnam War started, we had actually, we had gone into Korea, and there was never any resolution, basically, to the Korean War. So when we were more or less involved with the Vietnam War, it wasn't too bad at first, but it escalated to the point where it didn't make sense anymore. We were losing quite a few men. The fact of the matter is about over 59,000 deaths, U.S. military deaths, and the wounded was incredible amount of wounded, and we were using something called Agent Orange. It killed a lot of the civilians during that war.
Okay, and so your initial reaction, you kind of just went over it, but just were you like disgusted or?
Yes, there was a lot of opposition to the war. I was in opposition to the war at the time. I lived in Chicago. We marched against the war, especially during the Democratic National Convention in 1968 in August. There was a lot of opposition.
So, your involvement in the war, you said you did the protests. Did you do anything else, or and like how many protests were you a part of?
Well, there was a lot of social upheaval during that time. There was the Civil Rights Movement, 1964 Act. There was the feminist movement. There was the church lost a lot of its authority during that time. There was the Second Vatican Council that was quite liberal and so forth.
So you're pretty much involved with all that you said, the feminist movement, civil rights movement, and I know before you've told me your involvement with the civil rights movement, and that all kind of mixed together with the Vietnam War at that time.
Yes, there were, like I said, during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in August of 1968, there were about 10,000 protesters in Grand Park. And they had to call out the National Guard in order to control the mobs. At that convention, I believe Herbert Humphrey was nominated as a Democratic nomination during that year.
So, leading up to the Vietnam War, you had the failure of the Bay of Pigs, the construction of the Berlin Wall. Were you frightened at all that if the U.S. wasn't successful in this war, that the Soviets and the communism would gain a significant edge over the Americans for like the Cold War?
Well, in 1962, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. There was a lot of fear in the country during the 60s. People were making shelters in their backyards. They were equipping them with food that would last. There was a tremendous amount of fear during that period.
Just like the demographics of the people, were most of them opposed to the war? And could you see divisions emerging between supporters of the war, if there were any, and the protesters?
I think most of the people wanted that war to end. There was a tremendous movement to end the war. However, there was also a great deal of violence involved. And that, I think, led to the nomination of Richard Nixon in 1969.
Okay. What was the overall attitude towards the government at this time?
The overall attitude toward the government was, I believe it was mixed, just as it is today. You wanted freedom for the people, but at the same time, you wanted law and order.
Do you think that there might have been an alternate solution rather than going to the war? And do you have any idea what this might
Well,
be?
I have a personal feeling that the United States should really not involve themselves in foreign wars, especially those that there's little possibility of winning and our casualties are great. I think it doesn't make any sense to me.
Back at home, what effects did the war have on society, such as social trends, fashion, and entertainment?
Well, the entertainment industry was probably some of the best songs have come out of the 60s. Protest songs, songs with meaning. It was a decade of no other. Social change was absolutely incredible, and it affected all avenues of life. Entertainment, social, dress, all.
Okay. When the war was, you could kind of feel it coming to a close, did you feel as if your involvement in protests had a significant impact on or acting as almost a catalyst to end the war?
Yes, I believe there was so much public opinion against the war that they had to end it. Yes.
Once the war was over, could you feel some of the tensions between people in support and people protesting? Could you feel some of those tensions being alleviated throughout the country?
Not necessarily. I think there were a lot of hanger-ons to the protest. There were significant activity, I think, with the black movement. They were able to accomplish a great deal during that time, and with the war, hopefully we were never to involve ourselves in another war that was going to end poorly, like that one did.
So kind of like, it was one problem was over, but then we still had the problems of civil rights movement and all these other things back. Because when the war ended, that's kind of one problem, but we still had a lot of other things going on that created divisions in the American society.
Yes, it did, because they were very long embedded into the community. I can only basically tell you about what happened in Chicago. There was, on the south side of Chicago, there were black people they were in a very small area. Many people still, blacks coming up from the south. And what the government did at that time in the late 60s was to initiate low interest loans and a low down payment for people to expand. And what they did is they expanded block by block by block along the south side of Chicago. And a lot of people call that white flight, but it wasn't necessarily. It was the black community expanding.
In school, they often tell us stories of how the public was very cruel to the veterans returning from the Vietnam War. What is your opinion on this cruel treatment of them, and did you have any encounters with the veterans?
They're probably, the people should not have been angry with the soldiers themselves. I think it should have been directed toward the government and not those that felt they were fighting for their country. There were many, I'm not sure how many, that did flee to Canada because they refused to fight in that war. Whether it was good or bad or indifferent, remains to be known.
And if you were able to live through that era all over again, would you have done anything differently?
Well, at the time, for myself, it's a personal question because having a large family and living in the Black community, I felt that I did the best I could. I was teaching in Chicago and I marched with the Black leaders because we were trying to get better conditions in our public school system. The public school system was in pretty bad shape in Chicago in the 60s.
And then you just said you had a very large family, and I was wondering, do you think your involvement made a positive impact on them, and how so?
I believe that because we were living in the community, they saw the good and the bad and the in-between. Whatever they came out with in their future life and their opinion is based on their experiences in the community. And they know who I am and what I supported, and I can honestly say that today I can speak with any one of my children and feel that I have a good communication with them on that issue.
At the beginning, I asked you what were your attitudes towards society, government, and the current condition of America, and after the war, did that change at all? Your attitudes any different?
Well, are we talking more or less today's attitude or after the war?
Mainly directly after, but also nowadays I'd be very interested in as well too.
Okay, I've always considered myself to be an independent voter. I kind of look at the individual. I had, in what's going on in the world, in this country, and try to put my vote in as to what I can do to promote a better society.
Okay, that's it. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.